Good evening, all. Welcome to the November 10th, 2020, 6:15 meeting of the open session meeting of the Ayer Planning Board. I see we have a quorum. Good evening, all. I'd like to read the COVID notice, please. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Baker issued an emergency order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Public bodies otherwise governed by the OML are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be broadcast live on Channel 8 and on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by following the call-in information on the bottom of the live broadcast screen. For the Zoom meeting information relating to remote participation, please contact Cindy Knox, IT Director, at cknox@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8252 prior to the meeting. Our first order of business is call to order and approving the agenda. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second, please? Any discussion? I'm sorry. Any discussion on the agenda? I got things moving on the screen in front of me. It's confusing me. May I ask, I don't see the proponents for Ayer Solar 2B yet.
They are coming in right now.
Okay. So I'm going to take it as a matter of faith that I'm expecting Attorney Costa to join us also. So given that, I'd like to make a change in the agenda, please. And that is that the fourth item on our agenda is the continued review of amended site plan for Ayer Solar 2B. And Attorney Costa from the proponents has asked that we pick that up at the beginning of the meeting because he has a 7 o'clock meeting that he has a meeting right on top of this one that he needs to attend also. I'm guessing that's Adam, that's Attorney Costa right there. Fantastic. So I'd like to take the continued review for amended site plan, Ayer Solar 2B, move it to the, make it the first item in the agenda prior to do the special permit for 14 Washington Street and the continued site plan review of 14 Washington Street. If that is okay with people, may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And the picture's just changed again. Ms. Murray?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Diskin?
Aye.
Mr. Krantz?
You're muted.
Please unmute Mr. Krantz.
Is that a cat?
Yes, my cat's in the background. Chair votes aye. If you'll excuse me for a minute, I'm gonna put the chat back outside. Sorry about that. I'm sure the cat will be making noise again. So, good evening, Mr. Costa. How are you?
I am good, thanks. How are you, Mr. Chair?
I'm fine, thank you. It's been a while since we've seen each other.
I have to recuse.
Back in the good old days, face to face.
Thanks. Yes, and I'm going to ask, thank you, Mr. Diskin. I'm going to ask you to step out, and we'll have Cindy get you back when we're ready. Thank you. Attorney Costa, I understand that you'd like to address the board about the Ayer Solar 2B in relation to what was happened in 2017 and now.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess so. I didn't necessarily feel an incredible need or desire to intervene in the proceedings that are ongoing before the board, but I did send Mr. Archibald an email. I guess it was the latter part of last week following just a casual conversation I had with my client and with Kyle and with Cal about the process thus far and some of the reviews and comment letters received from various municipal departments and what Cal and Kyle anticipated might be some of the discussion that would occur as soon as tonight or even in preparation for tonight. So what I expressed in that email to him was really just a reminder, and you know, I hate to sort of harp on form over substance, but that's what I'm very much mindful of the fact that we are here in sort of an unusual setting. This is an application for an amendment to a site plan approval that was issued previously. As I think board members know, I know some of you were board members at the time, others are new, but this was a site plan approval that issued and was not appealed, not challenged by the neighbors or the butters. But there was ensuing litigation that related to an approval not required plan. And as a consequence of that litigation and some settlement discussions that occurred, it was agreed that we would try and make some what we perceive to be relatively minor modifications to the plan that the neighbors, the immediate neighbors in particular, thought were quite beneficial to their properties, to their quality of life. They had concerns about the proximity of the driveway to their homes, to their backyards. And they had some concerns about the visibility of the solar facility from their homes and their backyards. And so we attempted, and I'll give the neighbors credit, they incurred some cost and expense, and they engaged a consultant of their own to propose some concept plans to us as to what they saw as an acceptable resolution. And we then went back to the drawing board and tried to make that work on the ground. And we think we were able to do that. And so we have a settlement agreement pursuant to which we agreed to come back to the planning board and to the Conservation Commission, not for new approvals, but for modifications of the existing approvals. And what we perceive to be, again, relatively minor modifications. Certainly, I can say from the planning perspective, we consider them to be minor. With respect to the Conservation Commission, we are moving a few elements a bit closer to wetland resource areas. So we expected that there would need to be a more wholesome discussion with the Concom, and certainly there has been. But the point of my email to Mr. Archambault at the end of last week was just to remind him that, you know, we want to be cooperative with the board. We went through a lengthy process before, and the way I remember things, and maybe the board remembers it differently, but I think that we were cooperative with the board and attempted to address concerns that the board raised, and as best we could at the time, concerns that the neighbors raised. But we really don't want to open the can of worms that is the original approval, because we have an original approval in hand. So aspects of the project that are not modified, whether they be physical aspects like the location, the chief location of the actual solar panels themselves, or aspects of the ultimate approval, like the covenant requirement, or other conditions in terms of inspections or access to the site, those conditions all stand. They stand in the same form that they were issued originally, because that original approval is still very much in full force and effect. And we're not asking you to modify that, and we've not submitted an application to modify that. We're simply asking you to look at this shifting of the driveway to determine whether it's acceptable to you from a planning perspective, from a design perspective, and address any concerns that you might have. And then similarly, we're before the Conservation Commission, asking them to review that same relocation, but obviously with respect to matters that are in their jurisdiction, specifically the potential effect it could have on wetland resource areas and our efforts to mitigate those effects and to propose replication and things along those lines. So that's important to us, that we stay focused on the modification that's before you, in part because that's all that's before you, and legally that's what you're entitled to do and what needs to be done, but also because from our perspective, we have a very carefully negotiated settlement agreement with the neighbors. And if what we end up with is something that's far different, either because it does something that was not negotiated with the neighbors, or it requires us to incur costs that were not part of our pro forma and are inconsistent with our discussions with the financier of the project, it becomes problematic for us. So that was the sole purpose of my email to Mr. Archibald. That's really why I'm here tonight. He thought, my client thought, Cal and Kyle thought it might make some sense in the event that the board had questions about the scope of its review. And so I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Obviously, I represent the applicant, but I represent plenty of boards, and I'm not prepared to stand in front of you and misrepresent something to you that I would not say to a board that I represent. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for giving me the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Costa. And thank you again for taking the board through the, I think I would agree that my remembrance of what happened up in 2017, I believe I was the only sitting member of the board at that point in time. Mr. Archambault joined us in the middle of that process back then. I would hope that we haven't, so we, or I as a member of the board have been trying to remain, I'm not sure exactly what the exact word is, cognizant of what's happened in this project. As you said, it did not go to appeal, but it stopped because of litigation with the client, with the neighborhood group. We are unaware of what was negotiated with the neighborhood group, and we don't believe it's germane to what we need to be doing. We do recognize that, I would say, the lion's share of the work on the changes on this project have been in negotiations with the Conservation Commission and requests on the movement of the driveway for the negotiations with the neighborhood has caused work to be done with the Conservation Commission, by and large. I don't know, and I'm not sure if I should even ask this question, but I think you know me well enough to know that I got to ask the questions I don't know the answer to. I don't think we've stepped into anything that would necessarily be a problem or create, you define it as creating fiduciary responsibilities or changing the scope of the original approval in what our board has been doing. We've pretty much focused on what would be the road up to the culvert, if you think about it. I think that is there any members of the board who would think of it differently? But I think we focused on the intersection of the road on Washington Street, yes, Mr. Krantz, and all the way up through the paved section, all the way up to the culvert, basically. And our last conversations were surety for the town should, unfortunately, the project not proceed. What do we need to have in hand? Plus the previously negotiated decommissioning and whatever maintenance. And I don't have it in front of me right now, Attorney Costa, but I don't think we were going too far afield on that either. And I would hope that the proponent would agree with that. Excuse me, Mr. Krantz. Mr. Costa, do you have a comment to that?
I'll only respond briefly, Mr. Chair, because you've got another member that would like to speak. But my only comment would be, I'm not suggesting otherwise. In fact, as I said in my email to Mr. Archambault, I haven't been involved in the modification application. I haven't appeared before you since I did as part of the original application. So the only thing that concerned me, and frankly, what sort of prompted the discussion that I had with Cal and with Kyle, were not so much things that the board has discussed thus far, but some of what we were seeing arrive in the form of comments from departments and other boards and commissions. And I certainly appreciate that those departments and boards and commissions don't always recognize the scope of the planning board's review. They've been asked to comment on a project, so they look at the plan and they offer whatever comments they can. But I saw recent comments, I believe that they were from DPW, most of which were, arguably a bit beyond the scope, but pretty minor and not all that problematic in terms of us attempting to address them. But then toward the end of the letter, they talked about further evaluation of the intersection of the driveway with Washington Street. And they talked about some form of additional bonding or surety for the driveway. And so those raised red flags a bit in my mind, because number one, we had some discussions when this project was first before the board about that intersection, and the intersection hasn't changed. The relocation of the driveway ever so slightly has not modified the point of its intersection with Washington Street. And then with respect to the covenant and surety, I remember that well because we did go in circles, and less so with the board, but with staff, we had many discussions about the scope of a surety and whether a surety should even be provided for a private driveway. is not a subdivision roadway by any means. I'm obviously aware of the planning board's use of sureties frequently for the construction of ways and installation of municipal services. It's authorized under 4181U. This is a private driveway, but we ultimately conceded as part of the negotiation before and said, okay, we'll provide some form of surety. We have agreed to a covenant. A form of covenant was provided to us by the town that was the town's form, not ours. And we ultimately got signatures on that covenant from the owner, 3 different owners of record, the applicant, and from the board. And we have that in final form ready for recording. We never did record it because we never pulled the building permit for the project because of the litigation. But
you just answered my question. I'm sorry, you answered my question. I don't have a recorded copy of it. Now I know. Okay.
Right. But I've got it. I'm happy to provide it. I
That's
compiled it. I compiled it, a year and a half ago when I got all the signatures. But
Yeah.
a record with it because we never pulled the building permit. And in fact, the covenant requires that it be recorded prior to a building permit, but that never happened. So we were just hesitant to sort of get into that discussion again and go down a path that had us going in circles for a short period when this application was before the board a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Thank you. Mr. Krantz, I'm gonna ask you just one more second, and I hope you don't perceive me as being argumentative, Mr. Costa. The board, in a typical subdivision or an OSRD or something where roads are going in and multiple lots are going in, the board is used to getting some sort of surety on behalf of the town. And there's almost there's an expectation of townsfolk that we look after them. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And that's where the conversation was going a couple of weeks ago. With that comment, I'd like to recognize Mr. Krantz, who may have a question or a comment.
Yes, regarding Mr. Costa's letter and the comments that he just made for us. Thank you. And as I read it, I was wondering, did we cross the line? I literally mean that. I mean, I was wondering, did we overstep our boundaries? And Mr. Costa has articulated 2 areas of concern: the surety bond issue, and then the issue of the intersection. Perhaps my memory is poor, but I don't really remember us really arguing about changing the intersection. That seems to be static. I think that's okay. And we did have an intelligent conversation about bond and surety issue at the last meeting, and I think Calvin and the board arrived at a place that made sense. And because surety, of course, has to be tied to risk. If there's no risk, what's the point? Or if there's low risk, low surety, et cetera. So I have a specific question to ask Kyle and Cal. That is, are there specific areas in this process where you feel that we've overstepped and we got to, in your opinion, we got to correct? I mean, what's germane here? What do we got to resolve? What's up?
So I'll answer that. As far as the process itself, no, I don't feel like you've overstepped. You've asked questions. We tried to answer them as best we could. But it's trying to keep hands around the final product that we're producing and how far into the negotiations and discussions on surety and all the rest of it. That's really what this conversation is about. I think up until now, as far as the questions the board have asked, what they've asked of us to do, no, that there hasn't been any issue with that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm also going to ask, I do know, I'm assuming there was a meeting on Friday of last week between the proponents and the DPW, and Mark Archambault was in there also. And there was some discussion of a schedule of values that we would be able to base this off of. I am going to assume that the decommissioning that was discussed in the covenant from 2017 is pretty much the one we're going to go forward with. We haven't figured out the actual details of it because I don't know if the field has changed in size and any impact along those lines.
It's actually
in detail, but as I went back through our notes and looked at the covenant from before, I do recall those conversations in the room at town hall and how they did go a little bit round and around, and really because it's a very unique, it's a unique animal. We've had two before us, and we've had 3 in town. I've been involved in 2 of them. I don't know how the first one was done. So that's basically where we stand. So I appreciate that. My understanding from the meeting on Friday was that does the DPW, have you supplied a schedule of values yet upon which surety could be done?
Well, I guess the question is, no, we have not. We've developed one, but the question is, if we're going to use a covenant,
Mhm.
then that schedule of values is more or less irrelevant to the proceeding. The only thing-
Can I add something?
Sure.
Can I
go
add
ahead.
something?
Yeah, yes, please do.
That I think is important. So, Mr. Tillotson, you may recall this because again, you were on the board at the time. So we discussed two different things with the board back in 2017. We talked about the decommissioning requirement
Mhm.
and the sufficient monetary bonding or other surety in connection with decommissioning and how that would work. And that's a common conversation to have, and I've had it on behalf of many of my municipal clients when permitting a solar photovoltaic installation, because it's much like wind turbines, which of course came into being a few years before solar really took off, where there's a concern about, well, what happens if these facilities are abandoned? What happens if these facilities are discontinued? We're left with this site that is solar panels, has a wind turbine on it, and we've got to look at the thing forever. It's an eyesore. It's not being operated. What do we do?
Mhm.
We didn't object at the time, and we don't object now to providing adequate financial surety to ensure the decommissioning. And that was locked up by your decision back in 2017.
Mhm.
The second conversation we had was about a second surety for the project. And again, my recollection was that our initial response to that was a bit of a sort of respectful objection that, and this isn't a roadway. We're not dealing with subdivision approval where you would provide some form of covenant on the roadway because there's concern about construction and the town would have to extend the roadway if the developer walked away in the future. This is a little different. This is much like a driveway to a home or to a residence, maybe a lengthy driveway to a residence that's set way back off the road. You wouldn't be for that. But as we talk through it, we sort of agreed, okay, yeah, it's a meaningful driveway. It's going through some areas that are in proximity to wetland resource areas. And so we agreed that we'd provide some form of surety, but we were hesitant to talk about numbers because that's costly. And it's something, frankly, that the lenders are not that used to seeing with this sort of a project. And so what we negotiated in lieu of that was the covenant. And the covenant gives you the assurance you need because we can't flip the switch on the project until such time as the covenant is released. And then it's all for naught. My client's not going to build a project that he can't use.
Mhm.
Hence us negotiating the terms of that covenant that is the one that we have sitting in my file here that isn't on record yet. So we would expect that you would still require that covenant. We would expect that you would still require some form of decommissioning bond. We're fully committed. We're obligated by your 2017 decision to still provide those. We're not trying to get out of any of that. We just don't want to now suddenly find ourselves subject to some additional bonding, some additional surety that bears an additional cost to the developer.
Thank you. I did read through the covenant from before, the copy that I have, not the signed copy, and I looked at it. And as you were talking just now, I'm beginning to remember the difference between the two different projects. The one that came in off of name of the street escapes me now, where they actually had to build over the Beaver Dam.
Rosewood.
Thank you very much, Cal, over Rosewood, and some work that was done over there, and that went in. I also seem to recall that there was a maintenance. We did a fair amount of discussion around maintenance on that one. And actually, I was curious the other day, did we ever put in that covenant? And this is a conversation. I'll ask that question of Mark Archambault outside of this meeting at this point, because I don't want to stir up the water if I don't have to. Another question I have about it, but the other discussion we had was the maintenance being done underneath the panels, being done mechanically, not chemically and stuff like that. And I've got to say, I'm by that place at least once a week, at least during the warm months. And you've done a great job of keeping it up and going. So if it's my understanding is this: you are objecting to a surety for the driveway, as you state, that goes into the property. I have a question about the work that has to be done at the intersection of the roadway. I don't know. I'm a little afield on that one, and I'd ask Mr. Archambault if we would do a little bit of research on that, because that would be the only exposure. And I don't recall offhand if that was covered in the covenant from 2017.
Mr. Chair, just to be clear, because I don't want it to be misstated.
Mhm.
we're not objecting to a surety for
Mhm.
driveway. We're only objecting to an additional monetary surety. So as you know from subdivision control, you have the authority as a planning board to require a form of surety under 4181U.
Mhm.
That statute talks about different types of sureties, covenants, cash accounts, bonds, and it's the developer's choice which of those to provide typically.
Mhm.
And so we're not objecting to a surety. We already have a signed surety we're prepared to record.
Okay.
Objecting to, in addition to the covenant, somehow having to, and I'm not even saying the board has suggested it would do this, but
Mhm.
we would object to having to provide an additional financial surety in addition to essentially two sureties, a covenant as well as some cash account or bond that would require us to incur cost.
Got it.
That's all.
I'm glad we're having this conversation because quite honestly, I was making an assumption and we were operating on a single surety but this has helped clear it up a great deal. Mark, do you have something to say?
Yes, when I read Attorney Costa's letter last week, it did, raise the issue of, what is the fine line between doing a thorough site plan review, even under a modification and quote, going too far is, going beyond what would be looking at a modification or amendment of a previously approved site plan, excuse me. So, the gist of what I took out from his letter is that basically what we do with conditioning and what we do with the surety has to be pretty much just a minor modification of what was done in 2017. And when I look at the special conditions from 2017, I do see that, surety and maintenance bonds are mentioned as one of the conditions. And I believe that they chose a covenant option that was listed there. So I would, this question is to Adam Costa. Basically, do you see our legal limit in terms of acting on modification to be to do tweaks to what's already been approved, or can we, go much beyond that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, and I'm
Please.
simply going to respond in the way that I would respond to a board that I represent. Again, I don't represent you, I represent the applicant, but
Mhm.
I'll be, and I see Mr. Horgan shaking his head, so I appreciate that you're looking to me for advice, but I encourage you to confirm it with your counsel, who I have great respect for. What I tell the boards I represent is that when modification applications are submitted, special permits, site plan review, variances, that what's before the board is what's being modified. And to not be too narrow in the advice I give, any aspect of the project that might be affected by the modification. So let me give you a very simple example. In fact, it's sort of the opposite example of this project. Let's say you approved a site plan, or let's say you granted a special permit for a commercial development adjacent to a residential property. And the applicant, the decision wasn't appealed, but the applicant comes back in a year later to modify its special permit. And in seeking to modify the permit, it's going to shift the building a bit closer to the neighboring residential property by 10 feet. Well, what you would be looking at would not be any of the conditions of the decision talked about landscaping at the frontage of the site, or number of parking spaces, or hours of operation. If none of that is being proposed, then none of it's properly before you. No applicant would ever risk the underlying approval being changed
Mhm.
by making a modification application if it opened up everything to reconsideration. No applicant would ever do that, because the applicant always knows in seeking a modification that if the modification is denied, they can always fall back on the original permit. So what would be before you in that instance would be obviously the relocation of the building 10 feet closer to the neighbor, and then anything that would be affected by that. So let's say that there was a buffer between the neighbor and the commercial building. You might now consider, as part of the modification, whether that buffer needs to be increased, because now the building is going to be closer. So maybe instead
Yes.
of a landscape buffer, you want a 25-foot landscape buffer. So that's generally, the modification is the modification. We're not submitting a new application for site plan review. We have a decision already that approves a site plan for this site. We're simply asking you to look at what's changed as compared to the old approved site plan and tell us whether that's acceptable. And in the simplest of worlds, you would sign a one-page decision that says we substitute the new plans for the old plans, end of story. In a more complicated world, you might say, well, you're going to be shifting it a little bit closer to the wetlands, so we're going to require you to do a little extra with respect to stormwater management. We're asking you to put an extra basin in to ensure that the water is not flowing into the wetlands or something along those lines. But you wouldn't be looking at revisiting, covenants or decommissioning bonds. We're still bound by the original decision. You're not losing anything that you had before. We're not making a new application for site plan approval. So there really isn't a need to discuss the things where the door is already shut and we're already bound by conditions that you negotiated and you approved.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Attorney Costa. Do we have any questions from anybody else on the board or statements at this point?
Well, I won't speak for Mr. Horgan, but I can say our audience does seem to be concerned with something similar to what we spoke about last time, Mr. Chair, that we were listening to the applicant advise us, and now we're listening to the applicant's attorney. And I have to say, I'm a little concerned to also hear, I appreciate the wisdom that Mr. Costa is offering us, and it's helping me because as I've shared, I'm learning a lot on this board. But it's also, and I'm looking to my fellow board members here because I lean on you guys a lot, and I'm gonna just voice that to hear that these are simple modifications that we just have to stick with because they have to do with a lawsuit. I'm here to make the best decision by the planning and the planning board, but not out of concern for what may need to do with just neighbors. So I'm looking for a little more discussion from my board, and it's making me a little apprehensive, but I appreciate what I'm learning. And I'd like to hear more from the rest of you.
I have a comment for that, but does anybody else from the board have anything they would like to add? Hearing none. I say that an awful lot. I appreciate the example that you used, Attorney Costa, in that if a building was moved, the buffer would change and there would be a concern about the neighbors and the buffering of the building and the impact of the building being and the impact of the building on the neighbors. We are not privy, excuse me, my cat. We are not, she's climbing the wall behind me. Bonnie's downstairs and can't hear her. Many of you know I have an open concept house and noise travels poorly here, a lot here. Ultimately what has happened, if I can put it this way, the access into the solar panels, call it a roadway or a driveway, depending on who you are at the table, has been moved through a negotiation that we're not party to. I've got to imagine that it makes, and Kevin, don't shake your head yes or no or anything, okay? I've got to imagine that what has been brought to us is what's making the neighborhood happy and the proponent happy. Our job is to take a look at making sure that the town ends up with the resources it needs for the decommissioning and the covenant for the building of the project. And I think we're there, personally. Yeah. Mr. Krantz.
Yeah, that was my next question, is that can we arrive at a decision tonight? Why, do we have to keep kicking this down the road, or can we just settle this?
Mr. Chair, my advice, I think we're very close to making a decision, and what I was going to propose is, just, taking a very close look again at the covenant and the decision from 2017 and putting out a recommendation for, approval of the conditions, which might require a little bit of tweaking. We might want to look at the amount of the decommissioning bond. It was $21,900 in 2017. Does that need to be changed? Issues like that we can be exploring, but basically I'll take a look at what was done in 2017 and tweak it a little bit to reflect the current plan and put that out there as something that we can hopefully work on as for adoption at the next meeting.
I'm going to accept that, Mark, and I'm going to ask a favor of Attorney Costa. Could you please send me the signed copy that you
Yes.
have? I would
Of the
appreciate it.
covenant- Of the covenant, Mr. Chair?
Of the covenant, and I believe we had a final findings also. Is that part of the package from you also?
I have both.
Would you mind? I've got them in front of me. I just want to make sure we're doing, in the world of COVID, we have to do it all remotely.
Mhm.
I want apples and apples, if it's okay with you. Let's get the conversation complete and have it done once, because that's fair.
So I'm happy to do that. And if I could just take a couple more minutes of your time briefly, Mr.
Please.
Just to, Ms. Murray's point, I'm certainly not suggesting to the board that it ought to involve itself in discussions between private parties and a settlement agreement. I raised the settlement agreement just by way of background in explaining what brings us before the board and what in the back of my mind is makes it so important, maybe more so than usual, that the scope of your review of a modification doesn't go beyond the legitimate scope of a modification, only because we are constrained by the settlement agreement. But that wasn't meant to suggest that in any way your board should be considering the terms and conditions of settlement or the context around settlement. You're correct. You need to be looking at the application that's before you and ensuring that it protects the interests of the town and the townspeople. That's your role as a planning board. But with that being said, the scope of your review and, Mr. Archambault, I appreciate and certainly welcome an opportunity to review whatever you put together. But, the concept, just by way of example, of looking at the decommissioning bond and saying, well, it's 2020 now, and this was in August of 2017. It was 21.9 then. What's that amount now? Well, that's not before you. We're not proposing. Nothing about this project has changed. The decommissioning cost has not changed. I understand that inflation means that dollar amount may be different. That's just a reality of a project not being built immediately upon an approval having issued. But the project is actually smaller than it was before. Not substantially so, but somewhat smaller. And so
It's my understanding it's changed in size and it's changed in how it's laid out on the property also.
correct.
So we're going to, if it's okay with you, we're going to dot the i's, cross the t's. Adam, I think you're going to go away from this with the gut feel that this is something we want to get behind us. We're all pretty much satisfied that the work has been done here, and a lot of work's been done. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Horgan, would you like to speak?
I was just going to say, could we, yes, invite
Yeah.
Mr. Horgan?
I just saw the hand go up.
I wasn't sure what the protocol was, if I was, you could open up to public or not, so.
I was
Don't
going
interrupt
to,
anybody.
Kevin, I was going to open it to public, but please, I saw your hand go up. You have a comment, sir?
Yeah, I'm not here in any way to delay or hold up this project. We've been going long enough. We've come to an agreement between the neighbors and the applicant. Thank you, Ms. Murray, for suggesting that we not take the advice, with all due respect to Mr. Costa, of the applicant's attorney. I have a question for the board, and that is, I think, Jeff, you said that you haven't been privy to the agreement. I'm a little shocked by that because the planning board is party to the suit. So how is it that you're not privy to that? And how do you know that your approval lines up with the agreement between the neighbors and the applicant if you're not privy to it?
And no, and Kevin, Mr. Horgan, I appreciate those. I appreciate those two questions. First of all, why we are not privy to it. This was, I know that the planning board was named in the suit from years ago. I know that we went through and Adam, you have to please help me with not a discovery, but there was we sat down with an attorney and was asked a whole bunch of questions. Unfortunately, if you may recall back at the time, meetings did not happen because there was no there were no quorums. The planning board was struggling with getting meetings to be fully attended. With that being said, the other side of it is it's almost an article of faith on behalf of the planning board, in that the applicant's back saying to us that they have a negotiated solution and that both parties are happy and ready to go forward. Yes, Mr. Horgan.
That negotiated solution is being presented to you by one side. I'm not suggesting they're doing anything outside of the agreement. I don't know whether they are or they're not. We've talked about surety. We've talked about, all kinds of things that are well beyond my pay grade to understand. We have an agreement in place. The town council at one point was involved. Why is that town council not involved now?
I don't have an answer to that question.
So if you haven't read the agreement as a board, how in fact can you rule on it, I guess? And please, I see Calvin has got his hand up. I understand that we want to move this forward. I am as eager to move this forward as you are. I just want to make sure that it is in line with the agreement that we have in place. And we are right now relying on the applicant to tell us that it is.
May I answer that?
Please, Calvin.
So I understand your concern. We have given, before we submitted this, we gave plans to your attorney and made sure he reviewed them to make sure that those plans line up with the agreement. And because we don't want to design it and get it wrong and have somebody step forward and say, wait a minute.
Excuse me, Calvin. You referred to your attorney, the attorney for the neighborhood.
I'm sorry, the attorney for the neighborhood. Yeah.
Thank you, because we're gonna get three attorneys involved really quickly. So
Attorney
thank
Levine,
you.
Attorney Levine, we've talked, we didn't talk to him, we gave him copies of the plans early on so that he could review it to make sure that the plans that we designed for our client that come before the board comply with everything that your agreement with our client matches up. And I would submit that while town council may have a role to play in making sure that the agreement lines up, planning board does not have a role. Planning board is not the adjudicator of our decision or our reaching of a compromise or agreement between us. Planning board can only rule on what we put in front of them. And it's not their job to make sure that we did according to the agreement that you and we have. That's your attorney's job, town council's job, and our attorney's job working with them. And I would submit to you that we've made every effort to do exactly what that agreement called for, to the absolute extent that we could. There may be places where the road got shifted a little bit one way or the other because of conservation issues and things like that, but very little had to change from what our agreement was, if anything. And I don't think it's fair to ask the planning board to play that role because that's not their job. I think it's between the attorneys and your attorney and our attorney and us in general. I mean, we'd be happy to sit and review the plan with you and show you what we've done. And I think the fact that the planning board isn't privy to the agreement is we never thought to send it to them, and I don't think they ever thought to ask for it. I think that's the basics of it.
And if I can just add to that, Calvin, through you, Mr. Chair. So,
Please.
the town council certainly has a copy of the agreement. There's nothing to hide in the agreement. There's no confidentiality clause. There's no gag order or anything equivalent within that document. So I'm happy to share it. I would echo Cal's point. I mean, I'm often on that side of the table representing the board, and I'm often told by the boards I represent, if there are private parties on both sides of the V, as we say, plaintiffs and defendants, that the board is not going to participate in settlement discussions. And that's really exactly what happened here. The discussions were between the applicant and the neighbors. The applicant and the neighbors, as the private parties, struck a deal and negotiated a settlement agreement. And that agreement required, as they often do, further action by municipal boards. And it's not unusual for town council to not become involved in that process because town council wasn't involved in the negotiating of the agreement. But it is incumbent on the applicant and incumbent on the neighbors to each ensure that settlement agreement, which is a contract that either of them can enforce if there's a breach, is complied with. And so, we're happy to share it. It's just, I would tend to agree with Cal that the role of the board is to act on what's before it. And it's really the applicant's risk. If we submit something to you and maybe at first blush, the neighbors don't catch it, you approve it, and then it's determined to be inconsistent with the settlement agreement, then we're back in front of you again. That doesn't do us any good.
Thank you. And I guess, Kevin, as they've been pointing out, the role of the board is to do our best to make sure that the applicant or the project being brought to us fits with our bylaws and Massachusetts law. And the discussion between the neighbors and the applicant at this point is, I don't want to say it's not germane to what we do, but we have to make sure that once it is negotiated, it fits within the framework of both the town's bylaws and Mass General law. And it is treated as a project it is treated the same way any other project similar by the planning board in order to guarantee the town when surety is needed and covenants are needed and things like that. But we rely upon the parties who have brought to us an agreed upon solution. Mr. Horgan.
Has this board been advised by town council, who apparently is or was privy to this agreement? Has this board been advised one way or the other?
I have not. Mark, have we? I know you've been in touch with KMP.
Until recently, we had really no reason to consult with town council. However, I did share Attorney Costa's letter with our council.
Yep.
To get her comments, and she basically reiterated his general comments about, sticking to modified plans and that there is some case law on that. And, we shouldn't go too far afield into re-reviewing the entire site plan as a new site plan.
Okay.
Besides that, she has not, really been involved.
So I'm going to try and put a bow on this for us right now. Mark, I'm going to ask that we actually contact Attorney Quazel and make sure that she is of the opinion that the agreement between the parties is being represented in this application.
Yep.
Is that fair to all?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we'll get that answer. We'll get the answer for that for the next meeting. We'll get it before the next meeting, but we'll have that. So obviously we're not going to act upon it this evening. Does the DPW need anything in the way of a schedule of values in order to do their work for the road opening? Calvin or Kyle?
No, we don't believe so.
Okay.
We're not going to post a bond, and they're not going to be responsible for building their driveway. So,
thank you. Reading through the covenant, I don't recall, and I understand, Mr. Costa, you've got something coming up very quickly on you, and
I do.
I want to make sure that there's a maintenance piece in the covenant from before, I believe, for the area underneath the array, so it doesn't turn into a new growth forest.
Yes, I believe that's correct. And I'll as I said, I will send the final version. There's a condition in the decision itself that requires maintenance of the area beneath, and I think it's also referenced in the covenant.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd just be happy to read through them again because Mark sent over ones he had. I was unable to find mine, believe it or not, from 2017.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for putting us first on the agenda. I'm going to drop off, but I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to address the board.
Thank you very much, Attorney Costa. It's actually good to see you again. Not always under these conditions, but it's good to see you, and I hope all is well with you and your family. Anything else to discuss on this? I think we'd make a motion to continue until the next meeting, if there's no other discussion. Okay, a motion to continue. I have a second, please. I think
Seconded.
Julie, Ms. Murray said, yeah. So we have a motion by Mr. Krantz, a second by Ms. Murray. Any further discussion? Hearing none. At this point, Ms. Murray, how do you vote?
Oh, do I have to go first? Aye.
You're first on my screen. I'm sorry. Mr. King, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Krantz?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Ms. Murray?
I said aye again.
Thank you. I missed it in the ether there.
Change my name to Grandpa, and then I'll go last.
No, whenever somebody moves, all of the things shift on my screen. It's a little disruptive. So that being that, so I think that puts us next on our agenda, excuse me. That's going to be.
To get Ken.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say we should get Ken back in.
So thoughtful of you, Nathan.
Mr. Chair, may I ask, when you continued it, was it to the next meeting?
Yes, to the next meeting. Yes,
So the 24th?
the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I had two people left and one joined. No, okay, we have the same thing. Okay, so next on our agenda is the continued public hearing for the special permit for 14 Washington Street. I'm assuming Kyle or Calvin would like to speak to that. On mute.
Kyle, you're muted.
I can see you can see your lips moving, Kyle.
There, how about that?
That's better.
Better? Okay.
It's like you're at the office. Calvin was watching you talk, but
Yeah. Mr. Chairman of the board, thank you for your continuation of this. I know that Cal had submitted a letter to extend the request for this, and I'm going to have to rely upon that to request the continuance of it to the next hearing, to complete it and submit it to DPW for their review. It's as we have discussed. The language of the application, however, is what has delayed me amongst other things. So humbly I request that we continue that to the next hearing on the 24th.
thank you. That's a special permit. And how about the site plan review also?
Same thing. Yep.
Thank you.
They're
Mr.
fine.
Krantz? Any
Yes,
questions
I'd like
from
to
the
make
board?
a
Excuse me.
Oops,
Any questions
sorry.
from the board? Sorry about that. Mr. Krantz?
Wait, Ken raise his hand.
Oh, Ken, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Goldsmith and Mr. Burchard, do we have a potential completion of the documents so this can keep moving, or do we just keep going and going and going? I looked it back, and at the first meeting you guys came and Calvin Moore was with you, was February 25th of this year. So that's kind of a long time ago.
It is.
Any news that we can use to get this moving ahead so we don't completely forget about it and have to go start over again?
No, our intention is to get the plans into DPW for review prior to the next meeting, and we'll be off and running.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Also, Mr. Diskin, I'm going to take a little bit of responsibility, and this is not because I like Cal and Kyle all that much, but we did stop meeting for, I think it was 3 meetings or 4 because of COVID, because we all thought it was going to go away. We had 15 cases. But anyway, so Mr. Krantz, do you mind, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing for the special permit 14 Washington Street to the next Air Planning Board meeting, November 24th, 2020.
Thank you. We have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. King. Any discussion? Okay. Mr. King, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Krantz, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Diskin?
Aye.
Ms. Murray?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Gratefully.
Mr. Krantz, please, for the
Yes.
site plan review.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to continue the site plan review for 14 Washington Street to our next Air Planning Board meeting on November 24th, 2020.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. King. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. King, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Krantz?
Aye.
Mr. Diskin?
Aye.
Ms. Murray?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So we're done with those 2 items. We look forward to, we look forward to seeing you all again, gentlemen,
Yeah.
in 2 weeks. I'm sorry.
It's like Groundhog's Day.
I'm sorry.
It's like Groundhog's Day.
And the thing is, I lived through this back in 2017 and I think it came to us as a preliminary in 2016. I mean, it was a while, that one too, for the other one, but Washington Street, we'd love to see something happening there. Okay.
Absolutely.
Next on our agenda is town planner update.
Okay, I just wanted the board to know that we sent a letter to David Gianetta at 48 Central Avenue regarding our site visit. And, Charlie has been CC'd on that, so he knows that he can issue up to the last CO. And also, I sent a letter to Calvin Moore regarding Dan Van Schalkwick's findings about the site plan at 217 West Main Street. So Calvin did get back to me via email saying that he's out of town, that he would get in touch with me next week. So that's the status of those. The other update is we are going to be receiving a preliminary plan in the near future, perhaps for the December 8th meeting for the Washington Street subdivision. It would be a preliminary plan. It's about 22 acres back there, directly across from the high school. So,
Yeah, actually, if I may, Mark, do you able to get a copy of the Oxbow presentation for that?
I have their conservation analysis that I could send to the board.
Okay. I would, if I can have a moment of people's time, I enjoyed watching this. I know Member Krantz and Member Diskin have walked in this area, I believe, and are aware of it. I don't know, Mr. King, if you are aware of what's going on, but there is roughly a rectangular slice of land across from Ayer Shirley Regional High School near the Page Hilltop, and it goes back in towards the Nashua Street. I believe that's the top of Nashua Street back in there.
No,
Is it Pleasant Street back in there?
Nashua Street would be to its south,
South.
I'd say.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it goes back in a piece, and they were before the Conservation Commission for an ANRAD, and they walked the property last weekend. So they're trying to get from the Conservation Commission what the wetland, an agreement on wetlands delineation on the property. Once the wetlands delineation is done, they're going to be bringing it to us. We don't know what they're planning on doing. As Mark says, a preliminary plan will be coming to us. I thought it would be helpful for us all to know just the general lay of the land, if you will. If you get a chance to look at it, I did not get to look at the recording of the meeting, but Oxbow has a bunch of, they have a handful of exhibits that basically lay out the land. There are power lines running across the property, and the comment they made at the conservation was they have every intention of leaving the back of the property as green space. So we don't know what they're going to be doing there just yet, but it has some wetland concerns on the northern border and some wetland concerns on what would be the southeasterly corner, front corner, that they're trying to delineate. Cool. I've got a bunch of other stuff, but Mark, you want to keep going?
I have a question.
That's it. I don't know if you want to discuss.
Okay. Well, let me talk about some old business that I've got in front of me.
Mr. Chair, just
Yes, Mr. Diskin.
before we finish that
Oh,
preliminary
sorry.
plan, so do we have a requirement for a butter notification in the preliminary process, or is it only in the final plan process?
I believe it's only for the definitive plan. Heather?
Yeah, it's only for the definitive plan. We don't require public hearing notice either for preliminary plans, but we will send them out to departmental review for DPW, fire, police. Just kind of a general, because it is a preliminary plan and it will not have probably any more details than one plan sheet. So if it goes to too much a review, or as far as interdepartmental, there'll be too many questions unanswered because it will not have that much detail.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have a concern about that, Mr. Diskin?
No, I was trying to just double check without opening my subdivision regulations, but since we've revised all the subdivision regulations, I wasn't sure if we put something in there like that regarding the preliminary plan. And because the original chat that I heard was that they were not going to submit a preliminary plan, they could go right to the plan itself, the definitive plan.
Yeah, I think that changed today.
Okay,
That was a recent change, yes.
Yeah, we've been advising them to do preliminary.
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
It's nice to be advised about what's people are
Well-
advising others about.
No, to be honest, Ken.
After
Ken
they've
and I
already
had a
been
con-
advised. I mean,
Ken and I had a
it's
con-
some kind of sense.
Ken and I had a conversation about it earlier than the email I read from Mark later today. Okay, Ken?
Yeah, okay, what else would I have?
Yep. So, hey.
Finally, on that, on the process itself, the,
Mhm.
the process, the way I remember from the OSRD is, the conservation analysis, but then this cooperative effort that's between, planning, conservation, and the applicant, defining, what we consider to be the most valuable, whatever one considers to be the most valuable resource areas and that kind of thing. So are we to assume that conversation now goes on within the town hall?
It's a good question.
It is a good
No,
question.
at the staff level, it has not really gotten to that level of specificity yet.
But it will.
It will, but, concurrent with them submitting the plan to us, I think they will be dropping off the plan documents next week.
Wait a minute, that's what I'm getting at. So
So,
I'm trying to change that process because I think that's the process we talked about. That didn't happen the last time, but the intent was that. So if the engineer were to come with us with so much work done that it's harder for them to make a change, in their lot configuration, the sizes, the location of homes and things, and then their decision to say, this is what we believe is where we're going to put everything. I thought that was what we were trying to overcome in this mutual early. And we saw that at the seminars we went to too, Mark. The same exact question came up, and how it gets resolved early in the process before the engineer spends too much money driving everything in there to squeeze it, is what I'm getting.
Exactly. And that's why we strongly encourage a preliminary plan, because we know there will be some discussion about common driveways, about how many units.
Okay.
Solar orientation, they're asking for a few bonus points for that.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things that could shift, and preliminary is a time to do it before they sink money into the,
Okay, thank you.
And now, in the conversation about most valuable to least valuable land from a conservation standpoint, I've got to rely upon our compatriots on the Conservation Commission to actually make that decision.
Right.
And if you do have a paddle you want to put in the water, by all means, join the Conservation Commission meeting as a member of the public, and I'm sure they'll be more than willing to hear your input. So that's the end of the zero. If that's called zero, for those of you watching on the television, that's known as 0 Washington Street. That's how they're referring to the property now. And we don't know much except for the wetlands delineation at this point. Next thing on my list, the Catania agreement. I'm not going to ask for a showing of hands, but if you haven't had an opportunity to get with Heather, please sign the agreement so we can get it over to Catania. They did deliver it to us, and we were able to get, I know we have some signatures on it already, but that would be helpful if we can get that back. And I believe Heather is, the town offices are closed tomorrow, but she'll be back in on Thursday. Yes, Mr. Krantz?
Yeah, this is through the chair to Heather. So Heather, that's what I was wondering about. Do I need to sign the Catania agreement?
Yes.
So what, yeah, we just have to work out a time because you're going to be out tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, town hall's closed tomorrow, and I'm out on Fridays playing teacher.
Okay. How about Thursday?
I'll be there Thursday, 8 to 4.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll be in contact with you to make plans to sign. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All town traffic. All town is next on my list. We required in the requirement for the all town service station over on 110 on Harvard Road was that they submit a traffic management study to the town. And we wanted it done in October of this year, which is roughly a year after they opened their doors over there. We do have the traffic management study in front of us. It's, I think, 55 pages long, as traffic management studies get. It's about the right size. However, I would say the first handful to 7 pages are important pages to look through. Okay. And you will, I guess I looked at it this way. The pandemic has changed the traffic patterns on that road, probably dramatically. And whether or not we're going to see traffic patterns at the same level in the future is an unknown. I read it with an eye towards what are they doing to normalize the traffic from before to now to assumed in the future. There is a quick passage, I think it's on page 5. I don't remember exactly where it was offhand, where they start talking about, they spoke about the COVID, they spoke about the impact of COVID on it. But if you take a look at this traffic management study, it's telling you that, I can't even do the negative numbers. The percentage of traffic below what it was before is huge. So you ask yourself the question, I mean, we did this because we wanted to understand levels of service and whether or not there would need to be some sort of signaling or something happening on that road to make it safer. And this traffic management study probably doesn't give us that information right now. And it's probably because of, among other things, either they really, really, really well designed the driveways there, or the traffic really changed. And I have a feeling it's partially both. The next thing I would add to this, and you may have seen my thoughts when I sent the email earlier this week, is just over the line, going south on Harvard Road, is a proposed multi-unit development in the town of Harvard. That's about 100 yards beyond where these driveways are. So there's going to be an impact to traffic from there also. What used to be a field and a couple of snow machines every now and again when there's enough snow on the ground is actually now going to become an active driveway going down that road. And there's more development happening along that road. So by all means, I asked Mark Archambault to take a look at the traffic management study to see if he could find anything in here that really jumped out at him. Mr. Diskin, I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it. For anything that jumped out at you. I read through it, and as a layman, the Q and Q delay, also referred to some as a level of service on a driveway. We're talking 30 seconds or less. That's a 1 car. And if you go there, and that's the average during the busiest parts of the day, might be 3 cars. So I just don't know that we were afraid of a lot of traffic, and then something happened in the world that created a real change in the traffic pattern down there right now. Mark, do you have anything that you would point out?
No, the reduction in traffic value between 2017 and now, didn't surprise me too much. Yeah, it was around 10%. But it seemed that it could be that, it's a well-designed driveway and the road is sufficiently wide there so that there was not a delay in the level of service. So I want to read it again with a little bit I skim read it this afternoon, but
the other thing is,
I believe it's a combination of lower traffic volumes and perhaps a well-designed driveway that, luckily the traffic problems did not arise.
Yeah, I was talking to Mr. Diskin about this the other day, and as I said to him, also the driveway across the street was a mud puddle you had to drive through. So the level of service going in and out of the old gas station was sitting on the road waiting to drive through the water to get to the gas pump. And if you had to go in for diesel, you had to go behind the building, come around and come back out, as opposed to this one where it has the high-speed diesels on the back and the normal diesel pumps on the front. So it's just, it almost, I drove in today at around 7:15 or so this morning to fill up. And I was surprised by how many cars were there and how quickly I was in and I was out. There was no turning traffic. Really, I was surprised. So, that being said, if you find anything in Mark in it that's valuable, I think we should probably figure out how we're going to respond to the folks at Global Partners who submitted it. She's done a wonderful job. Heather Montecup has done a great job. And, we reminded of them. They're like, yeah, we're on top of it. We're just going to pick out when we're going to do it. So there's that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
so I'd make a recommendation that at the next meeting, we make a motion, to approve the study and send them a letter that they're in compliance with the condition that required the study.
Mhm.
Unless, I was going to ask Mark if offhanded he heard anything from like DPW or the police or fire. I'm not aware of any incidents that happened there, accidents or any other issues. So typically somebody would say something if that had a chance that there was a
Yeah.
problem. So,
No, I have not heard anything. I think Dan may have mentioned to me that, yeah, he's pleasantly surprised that traffic is not up in there.
so,
And actually, Dan leaves town to the south. That's how he goes
Oh,
back
that's
and
right,
forth all
yeah.
the time.
That's right.
Yeah, he heads out that way all the time. So, there's empirical evidence and there's actual experience, and the world we live in has really odd ways of showing up in our lives sometimes. So that's all done. Two more things that are on my calendar to talk about. One of them, I want to inform the rest of the board of what's going on, and I want to thank Vice Chairman Diskin for putting this all together. Harken back to Shaker Mill Pond, and the Shaker Road development over on the Harvard line. Currently, Mr. Aho is actually building out the last of the lots at it's called Lot 6, and they're starting to do the preliminary work for the Shaker Mill Pond. And as a matter of fact, one of the site walks that the Conservation Commission did last Saturday was to go and take a look at the right of way that goes from 119 through the wild area, if you will, to the corner of Shaker Road, where as you're heading out of Ayer, you go down Shaker Road, take a 90-degree turn to the left and a 90-degree return to the right. That second turn is just before the Ayer Harvard town line. If you were at that turn, if you get to that turn and you look across the marshland towards Route 119, there is a paper street there and a right of way. And they're going to use horizontal directional drilling to put in the sewer line and to also put in the water service for Shaker Mill Pond. So that little corner of Ayer will be put on our wastewater treatment plant, and we'll also get town water. During that process, there still seems to be some misunderstanding about where the town line is, and has popped up on in a couple of instances. And so Member Diskin and now Vice Chairman Diskin took the time, and I believe, Mark, you have a copy of this memo that Mr. Diskin put together. So Mr. Diskin wrote a memo basically to the file. And what it does, it outlines all of the work that was done by the board in ascertaining how we got to the decision that Shaker Mill Pond was actually in Ayer, not in Harvard, and also the Aho development that's down there. And we're just going to put this in the file so that it doesn't get lost, and also there seems to be a little bit of a discussion going on between us and our neighbor, and I don't want to start any, I'm not going to throw any stones, but we believe that we have ascertained where the proper boundary is, and this is just the background information. So I'm going to ask Mark to scan a copy of this, if you don't mind, Mark, please, and share it with the board members so they can take a quick look at it.
Yes, yep, I can do that. I
Thank you.
already put it in the file, so I'll take it back out and scan it for everybody.
Yeah, appreciate it. Just so we can get, just so everyone's on the same page. And I think, good job, Ken. Thank you very much for putting it together.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I'll tell him. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we get to meeting minutes. How am I doing for time? We're good for time. A few more minutes, Cindy, please. Holiday calendar. We're coming up to the point of time in the year where we're going to bump up against holidays. Excuse me. November 24th, Tuesday night, that's 2 days before Thanksgiving. And then the 22nd is 3 days before Christmas. Any reason we need to, I'm going to ask you, are we going to have a quorum? Anybody going to be away those nights?
We're talking about
Resounding silence.
the 24th is 2 days before Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, Tuesday before Thursday.
Yep.
And then Tuesday and Christmas is the 25th this year. I don't have the other holidays on my calendar. Next year I do, but this year I don't. So, okay, it sounds like we're going to be fine for the 10th, the 24th, the 8th, and the 22nd.
Right.
Some years we just hit the holidays on planning board days. It's just brutal. It is just brutal. Okay. Minutes. If you all would give me a moment, I printed out the minutes that were sent out most recently, and I started to read them, and I came across a bunch of things. So bear with me 1 second while I. And I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Krantz, for going through the minutes and stuff. But I am going to, bear with me, please, sorry. I want to make sure I printed out the right ones because I started reading them quickly before dinner and I came up with a couple of yeah. Actually, I found quite a few. I would say I've gotten through a couple of pages on them, and I've got a couple of suggestions, and I actually have a question about one paragraph, but I haven't got a chance to go all the way through. Well, 3 pages. Do you want to take some time to go through minutes now, or would you like me to submit the changes I've made? I found a handful of items that I'd like to change in the minutes, or I'd like to clarify in the minutes, if it's okay with the other board members. Not to change the meeting, but just for instance, on page 3.
Jeff, can I
I'm
say,
sorry.
it's easier for me if you send them to me than try to do this during the meeting.
That's what I was going to
don't have them
say.
in front of me right now.
Yeah, no, I prefer to do that if it's okay. It's as simple as word choices, and I think some other things could be spell check and stuff like that. So if it's okay with you all, I'll finish this up and I'll send them over to Heather. And if it's okay, we'll table doing the minutes until our next meeting. Okay?
Then Heather will send us the revised copy.
Yeah.
We can look at
Of
it and
course.
be ready to vote on it at the next meeting.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Does anybody have any other business, old or new, they would like to discuss? I want to thank you all. And with that being said,
I have
I'd
a
love
question.
a motion to adjourn.
Actually, I have a question
Yes, Mr. Diskin.
for Mr. Ashenbo. Any news from Mr. Gardner and his son about the actual, they gave him a special permit, but there's been no
Right.
follow-up on a site plan.
They are still working on it, I believe, so, I imagine that the site plan could take a while to produce. So I
Okay,
anticipate that'll come to us early in 2021.
I want to thank you all. A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Jonathan, we saw you mouth it, but we didn't hear it. Moved by Mr. Krantz.
Oh, so
Seconded-
moved. There you
So moved by Mr. Krantz. Too much technology in your life, John.
Yeah.
Seconded by Mr.
Yes.
Diskin. All in favor? I'm sorry.
Aye.
Mr. King, how do you
Go
vote?
ahead.
Aye.
Mr. Diskin.
Aye.
Mr. Krantz.
Aye.
Ms. Murray.
Aye.
Chair says aye. Have a great night all. Thank you very much.